Chair, we're now live.
Can I bring the committee to order? Thank you very much. Welcome, a warm welcome to those attending and viewers on the Council YouTube side channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Higgins. I'm the chairman of this committee at the moment. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agendas, copy which are accessible in the room and online under the live broadcast. For those present in the room intending to speak, please note that you will be filmed and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anybody speaking today that your voice will only be audible online when the microphone is switched on. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if the alarm does go off, please follow officers out of the room. Mobile and tablet devices, you can see that councillors have their computers. If anybody's playing Candy Crush, please let me know, but they should be looking at their agendas, and that's what they're there for. So anybody else in the room, if you have a mobile phone, can you please switch it to silent or off? We'll go through the attendees before I move to the agenda. So I have Councillor Adam Bennett, my Vice Chairman. Welcome. Councillor Keith Burrows, welcome. Roy Chandel, welcome. Councillor Mand, welcome. Councillor Sansapuri, nice to see you. And Councillor Singh, lovely to see you. My officers today is Ros Johnson, Head of Development and Management of Building Control. Ed Lawton, my Area Planning Service Manager. Owen Concannon, it's actually taken me a long time to get that right, but my planning team leader. Chris Brady, my fellow Queen's Park Ranger supporter, planning team leader. Michael Bringshaw, deputy leader, team leader. Alan Tilley, or I should say Dr. Alan Tilley, our transport and planning development team manager. Natalie Faircroft, who's my legal advisor, so I'll make sure I don't break the law. And Liz Penny, my democratic service officer, who often keeps me in check. So, I'll go straight to the agenda. Do you have any apologies for absence, Liz?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we've received apologies from Councillor Garelick with Councillor Sansapuri substituting.
Welcome, Councillor Sansapuri. Nice to see you. Any declarations of interest matters that come before me? Councillor Bennett?
Chair, item 8, Dyson Drive, Uxbridge. I will set out for that item just as I live very close by. Okay,
thank you very much. We received the minutes of the previous meetings. We all agree? We all agreed? Agreed? Great. Matters that have been notified in advance or urgent, there are none. And to confirm that all business is marked is in part 1 and there's no in part 2. So we go to the first item of the agenda, which is item 6, 13 Oak Avenue. Chris, do you want to take us away on that?
Thank you, Chairman. Item 6 relates to a development application at 13 Oak Avenue, West Drayton. I won't take you through the full presentation in detail, as members will be aware that the application was presented to last month's February Planning Committee, where it was recommended by officers for approval. Members decided to defer the application for a site visit to review the parking stress and whether the extension to the dwelling in order to form a new dwelling would impact the character and appearance of the street scene. So I'll quickly run through the presentation, which is identical to February's. As you can see, the description of development on screen was for the erection of a 2-storey, 2-bed attached dwelling with associated cycle storage and amenity space. Here you have the location plan with the application site within the pink box. A constraints plan. You'll note that the site is not identified as being located in an area of environmental or development plan constraints. Existing plan and proposed block plan. You'll see the attached dwelling in blue in the top right hand corner. You've got the existing floor plans, existing elevations, proposed ground floor plan, proposed first floor plan, proposed roof plan, building sections, proposed elevations, proposed site plan, and then a CGI plan. Some further CGI plans and a bird's eye view plan. These are the images that we showed in the last presentation. These will be what members would have seen on site during the site visit. Pedestrian This is taken from the pedestrian footpath, which is directly outside of the site. You'll note the existing side extension on the left-hand side there. View towards the outbuilding. This outbuilding is to be demolished. View of the neighbouring property at number 11. Existing rear garden and trees which are to be retained. Long distance view over the secondary kitchen window. Rear garden, side elevation and existing parking area. Officers attended a site visit with members on the 25th of February, where members were able to view the on-street parking situation for themselves. It was confirmed that there is sufficient on-street parking to withstand the additional one space required to serve this development. Members were also able to view the site within its context. The proposed dwelling would be located within the corner of the street, and due to its orientation of the new property, views of the new dwelling would almost be completely restricted to the front boundary of the site. As such, officers remain of the view that the development would not appear cramped or over-dominant, therefore would not give rise to harm upon the local character and appearance of the area. Based on the outcome of the site visit and the assessment undertaken by officers in the detailed committee report, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Can you also confirm about the HMO situation, because that was a bit of a issue last time, and I just want to make sure that the members know that they have to apply to become a HMO in that area. So, can you?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't present at committee last time.
Yeah, thanks. And just to remind members, it was something we spoke about at length last time, so it's important just to re-clarify. So there is a live planning enforcement investigation on the property. That relates to the alleged change of use to a HMO, and also alleged discrepancies between the as-built extensions and the planning permissions. So just important to be really clear that that's a separate matter. So officers' view is that it isn't material to whether or not the two-storey, two-bed detached dwelling is acceptable in planning terms or not. So regardless of the decision on that tonight, the planning enforcement investigation will continue, and if it's concluded that there has been a breach of planning control, that will be pursued separately through the planning enforcement investigation.
Thank you, Ros. I didn't mean to put you in it. Considering it was Councillor Bennett and myself were just there at the site visit, and there is no speaking rights on this because no one got their application inferred, so there's no petitioners or applicants to speak. So I'll go straight to you and give your views on what you thought when we were there.
Thank you, Chair. I was expecting a flurry of people to speak before me. So yeah, I think I was one in motion for the site visit. I think it was valid. There were two concerns, one around the parking, because the pictures on Google Street View and also that we were showing showed cars half parked on the pavement, cars blocking driveways, and secondly just the overdevelopment of the site. Particularly when you're building a new two-bed house in the garden of another house in quite a densely populated area, it was really, really helpful to see it. My concerns were eased somewhat. I did a good count up of the parking spaces. Most of the houses have off-street parking provision, most with quite a lot actually with 2 spaces, and then we counted the number of houses. I think it worked out that every house has got 1.4, 1.5 spaces, and then when we had a look around the site, you really get a feel for the width and length of the garden, particularly with the side extension being demolished. The new house going in, there's kind of no impact on the neighbours either side. There's kind of no line of sight, and then the houses sort of to the back, both along the one side and to the rear, are very far away from the proposed new build. There's also the advantage, obviously, on the HMO piece that, as much as the enforcement investigation is ongoing, reducing the size of that property is going to reduce the likelihood of it being used as a large HMO. So on that basis, I'm happy to recommend we go with officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you very much. So I'm proposed. Anybody wants to second it? Councillor Burrows?
I go along and second that proposal, Chairman.
So I'm proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands those in favour of this application? That's unanimous. Okay, fantastic. That was nice and quick for a petition item, wasn't it? Not usually that quick. Okay, so we go to item 7, 105 Hayes End Road. Chris, you're up again.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 7 relates to a full planning application at 105 Hayes End Road. I'd like to draw members' attention to the addendum on this item. There are two parts. The first is the deletion of the reference within the committee report, which cites that the application site is located within an area of special local character. I can confirm it is not. The second part is to update the drawing references throughout the report to reflect the revision numbers. I must be clear in saying that the content of the plans themselves has not changed. The content of what you see both in the drawing packs and also within the committee report itself is the same. Unfortunately, upon submission, we did find that they did not have a revision number, and in order to ensure that we have a robust condition, which is an approved plans condition, in the event that there would need to be an enforcement case, we wanted to be very clear on what the plans were that committee members would be approving. So revision numbers have been added through the addendum. That's what you'll see in the addendum itself, but the actual content of the plans is exactly the same. Yeah. As shown on screen, the application proposes to convert the dwelling into 2 flats, including the conversion of the garage to habitable space, erection of a single-storey rear extension, rear dormer with front roof lights, minor amendments to the fenestrations, and the inclusion of associated parking. Here is the location plan with the site denoted in red. Here is the constraints plan. Members will note that the site is not subject to any environmental or development plan constraints. Here is a wider location plan with the site shown in red. Before taking you through the plans, I would like to draw members' attention to the planning history on the site, as there are 2 key elements for the assessment of this application. The first is whether the extensions to facilitate the conversion of the dwelling have been designed to conform with the development plan, and the second is whether the conversion of the dwelling to 2 flats conforms with the development plan. As noted in section 4 of the committee report and in more detail within appendix 2, the site benefits from an approved lawful development certificate for the conversion of the roof space and a rear dormer. This is important as it establishes a valid fallback position for the alterations and extension within the loft space. A previous application for a similar development was refused on the basis that the proposed extensions, in combination with the existing extensions, would be insubordinate and visually incongruous. A further reason relating to the poor design of the parking spaces and planning balance was also added to this decision notice. It is important to note that the previous application proposed a part single, part double storey rear extension, the conversion of the loft space including a rear dormer and hip to gable end loft extension. The application before members for consideration this evening proposes a single storey rear extension and a rear dormer loft conversion only, which is a substantial reduction in the development when compared with the previously refused application. I'll now take you through the plans. Here is the existing and proposed block plan. Members will note that there is an existing rear extension shown on the left. This would be demolished and replaced by a slightly larger single-storey rear extension. Notably, the extension is modestly scaled, which does not extend excessively beyond the rear building line of the existing extension, nor the 2 neighbouring properties. As such, the extension would conform with the development plan in the round. Here's the existing floor plans, existing elevations, existing side elevations, and existing section. Here are some photos. This is the street scene elevation. You'll see the garage conversion just here. Front elevation. We refer to an earlier extension, that is this section of the property here. You've got the extension to be removed at the rear. These are the proposed floor plans and roof plans. You have the proposed rear extension there, small loft dormer here. I just want to point out that the difference on this plan in comparison to the previously refused proposal. So where we refer in the report to a more modestly scaled dormer, the CLD would have allowed the dormer to extend beyond this roof plane here. So in fact what you had was a much larger rear dormer, which was arguably more imposing on the street scene than what you're seeing now. In terms of the previous application, what you would have found is that the hip to gable would have come up and across. As there is the presence of a side extension already, the development plan does not allow for a hip to gable and loft extension, as the development plan and local plan policy DMHD1 requires all loft development to be located to the rear. So just to be clear, this is a much more modestly scaled extension than previously refused. Here we have the proposed side elevations. You'll see that the rear dormer is set down adequately from the main ridge roof height. Proposed section indicating that the loft would have adequate head height. Proposed site plan, which is shown here. As referred to earlier, there was a reason for refusal associated to the previous application. That reason for refusal related to the car parking arrangement. Here, you'll see it more here. In the previous application, there were two tandem parking spaces, so one behind each other. And naturally that could cause issues in terms of vehicle movements, etc. So now we have a plan which satisfactorily resolves that reason for refusal. An extension to the existing crossover would be required to facilitate access to the parking spaces. This will require a separate application to the local highway authority. Here's a bird's eye view plan. And just in terms of the assessment of the conversion to two flats, the proposal would not present an over-concentration of flatted conversions along this street. A 3-bed flat ground floor level would be provided, therefore the application would not result in a net loss of family-sized housing and would provide an additional 2-bed unit in the upper floor level. The residential intensification on this small site is supported in principle and conforms with the development plan. As discussed earlier, the extensions proposed are modest and they have been designed to conform with the development plan also. The proposed internal floor area would exceed the minimum standards set out within the London plan. The ground floor family size unit would have access to the large rear garden. However, the upper floor flat would not have access to any private amenity space. Consideration has been given to whether the site has sufficient access to public open space within a reasonable distance. As shown here, the site is located 0.5 miles and 10 minutes walk from Hazen Recreation Ground. And on this plan, the site is also 12 minutes walk from Knights Gardens. Both have a variety of informal and formal play provision, as well as an obvious soft landscaped area of open space. Access to public open space is likely to be afforded weight in the event of an appeal, making a reason for refusal on the grounds of a lack of on-site access to private amenity space less defendable. The applicant has provided examples of similar schemes where access to public open space has been adequate to offset on-site provision. As such, in the interests of the consistency in decision-making, officers consider the development to provide adequate levels of living accommodation in the round. In summary, the proposal responds satisfactorily to the previous reasons for refusal by reducing the scale, bulk and massing of the extensions and amending the parking layout. The principle of development is supported and would bring forward an additional 2-bed dwelling, which is a benefit that weighs in favour of the development. The standard of living accommodation is acceptable and the development would not give rise to a reduction in the amenities of neighbouring properties or highway safety concerns. As such, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris, for the thorough report, explaining everything. Very good. Petitioner Kathleen Farrell, is that anybody present? No? So there's another quick one, it looks like. Applicant, Mr. Blum or Mr. Friedman? No? Okay, brilliant. Straight to the floor. Can't do better than that. Who wants to take me away? Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that point about the amenity space, the 12 or 14 minute walk if you're Usain Bolt, I imagine, the figures there. That property has a garden, so why can't they share the garden?
Chris?
Let me just take you back to this image. So what you'll note in this image is that the property extends the entire width of the plot. We did discuss internally whether there could be an access provided to the garden space, but in fact you'd have to make an internal access or remove part of the building, which would then take the lower ground floor level unit below the 3-bedroom standard. So in fact we would be giving greater weight to the requirement for amenity space than we would for family housing. So on balance, we don't consider that the reduction in family housing to outweigh the requirement for amenity space.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I know you love that term, Councillor.
I love that term. Well, there's nothing much. Sorry, Chair. There's not much. So can I just?
Yeah, of course.
Apart from that one point that we're not hitting policy, and we're going to have to put a more common sense approach to it, where there is a park nearby, so, and it's a quite decent park, then I would go for follow officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Chandel. Proposed, second to Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think the only reason this has come to the planning committee is because there was a petition, and if the petitioner's not here to talk through the petition and to answer questions, I'd be happy to second officer's recommendation for approval.
So, and I think the view from the second floor, they can see loads of green space out the back. So, inspiring just to look at green spaces. Okay, so I'm proposing second. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour of the application? That's unanimous again. Well, we're doing very well here. We do well for time. Now we go on to the next item, which is item 8, Dyson Drive. Chris?
That's me, Chairman. Thank you. I'll just let him go out. Yep. Before we start the presentation, I would just like to draw members' attention to the committee addendum and the proposed inclusion of an additional reason for refusal on the grounds of the lack of B&G information. So the application is, in terms of the framework, should be subject to a B&G supporting information which hasn't been provided. Therefore, through the addendum, we are seeking to add an additional reason for refusal.
Can you just explain what the B&G is? It's because it's lovely terminology. Sorry, Chairman.
B&G relates to biodiversity net gain. Within the NPPF, there is now a requirement for small and major sites to deliver a on-site 10% net gain. As such, in support of the application, unless it meets one of the exemptions which hasn't been identified robustly within the application form or the supporting information, the applicant would be required to submit a statutory metric which provided a baseline assessment for the existing value of the site, and then information to demonstrate that 10% net gain can be provided. In this case, that information has not been provided. Thank you.
Thank you. So you want to go away with the
Yep,
presentation?
I'll start the presentation, yep. The application proposes the creation of 9 off-street parking spaces and planting of 3 new trees. The application has been submitted on behalf of the residents of the dwellings on Dyson Drive. The application site refers to Dyson Drive, which is an unadopted road located within the St Andrews Park Phase 3B. The site lies within the developed area. There are no other policy designations. And you can see that on this constraints plan here. The site comprises of 15 parking spaces for use by residents on Dyson Drive. The existing parking provision consists of 9 allocated parking spaces for the use by applicants and 6 unallocated parking spaces. This is the proposed location and site plan. The proposal seeks to increase the parking provision available to house owners on Dyson Drive, resulting in 2 parking spaces per dwelling. The application has come before committee this evening due to the submission of a petition with 54 signatures in support of the proposal. The application has also been generated 12 letters of support and 12 letters of objection. The application is a resubmission to a similar application that was refused by Planning Committee approximately a year ago. The previous application proposed 8 additional parking spaces, whereas this application proposes 9. And those parking spaces were along the road, whereas the current application would add, as I said, an additional 1 within the same space alongside the existing parking bays. The current Let's just move. This is the bird's eye plan, so you'll see parking spaces underneath these tree canopies here and there. Some photographs. Dyson Drive here. This is from the opposite end of Dyson Drive. And the last photo there. The current scheme also proposes 3 trees and the use of the grasscrete surfacing on the new parking spaces. The provision of new trees is welcomed, however the grasscrete is not, and is not considered to be an appropriate solution to offset the loss of the green space. To the north of the site is a landscaped pedestrian link. The proposal is considered to detract from the visual quality and usability of this important part of the estate. In accordance with the St Andrews Park development application, the application site forms part of Phase 3B, which was granted permission for 56 units, 70 car parking spaces. This results in a parking ratio of 1.25 spaces per unit. Adding 9 additional spaces would increase this ratio to 1.41 per unit. In accordance with the London Plan, which sets out maximum car parking standards, and I would emphasise that they are maximum, the allowance within that policy would be 46.5 spaces for the 56 units, equating to a ratio of around 0.83. As such, the increase from 70 to 79 spaces would be far in excess of the maximum parking standards set out within the London Plan. Members should note that the London Plan sets the maximum car parking standards in order to accord with National Planning Policy's framework's objectives for sustainable development. Whilst this is not the sole mechanism for achieving this, the reduction in car parking is viewed as essential to reducing the demand for car use. This development is therefore not only contrary to the London Plan, but also the objectives of sustainable development within the development plan as a whole. Furthermore, increasing parking availability would not necessarily address a parking demand issue. In fact, it may well encourage further parking demand as well as promoting the use of the car rather than more sustainable methods of transport. Due to the lack of parking controls on Dyson Drive, the proposal would increase parking congestion, thereby making the existing situation worse. The application has been reviewed by the local highway authority, have raised strong objections to the proposal. No justification has been put before officers, nor benefits which would be considered to outweigh such a stark policy departure. As such, the application fails to respond positively to the reasons for refusal, which were attached to the previous application, and it remains unacceptable in policy terms. In addition, in accordance with the NPPF, the proposal would meet the requirements for the requirement of the on-site 10% biodiversity net gain provision. This application is not supported by a statutory metric nor a BNG assessment, and this forms a second reason for refusal. For the reasons detailed in the committee report and the addendum, officers recommend the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Steve Haywood, would you like to come on down? That's fine. No, hang on a minute. I'll just do this. Mr. Hayward, so Richard, are you the agent then as well? So, what, are you planning to speak together, or what? You're going to share the time. Okay, because obviously you'd have 5 minutes each, so you want 10 minutes? Oh, right, yeah, fine, yeah. Yeah, but what would normally, what? No, it's fine. It's just unusual usually for the petitioner and the agent to be talking together, but that's fine. We'll give you the 10, if that's okay with you, so then it's all done in one go. Okay, so whenever you speak, just press the microphone.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairman and members. This application is a resubmission from a previous application you've seen before. The previous application was refused because of highway safety grounds, because what we were seeking to do was to marcate car parking spaces along the existing private road that you can see on the photograph above. Currently, what the current residents experience is that there's actually informal car parking along there anyway. So our original plan was to kind of regularize that, to make it safe and usable for the existing residents. However, probably rightfully so, the members felt that there was a highway safety issue, so we took that refusal away. We listened to the council officers, we listened to some members as well. I just want to add actually that this application was submitted on behalf of all of the residents of the street, so Dyson Drive. That's 9 separate houses, so there's a lot of public support for it, and most of them are here tonight as well. So when we were formulating the new proposal, obviously highway safety was really important for us, so it led to us rearranging the parking and actually providing 9 off-street parking spaces instead. So currently those 9 houses have 1 parking space each, isn't that right? Yeah. So what we'd be proposing is making that 2 allocated spaces per unit, which is in line with your local parking standards. However, they're not in line with the regional London plan standards. So that's where the sort of rub is, to speak. Yeah, so that's more or less the parking point, but I would just add as well that Killet Drive, which is on the other side of the Green Boulevard from Dyson Drive, if you compare that street to this street, it's very useful for comparison purposes, because what you'll find is there's a lot more car parking spaces on that street.
21 versus 16.
Yeah. And there's also actually a turning head as well, so it's a lot more intense in terms of hard landscaping as well, much less greenery. I've heard tonight the point on, the PNG. That's a bit unfortunate. I do recognise that it probably is required because it's over a certain square meterage. It wasn't submitted with the application because at the time we submitted it, we were resubmitting, obviously, following a previous refusal. What I would say on it, though, is that it's very clear if you look at biodiversity, communal grass, which is what's there at the moment, is the lowest biodiversity value there is. So it has very little biodiversity value. And then if you look at the size of our red line site, so Chris, if you wouldn't mind showing the red line site, yeah. It's just the point I'm looking to make is that it's the other one, that one, yeah. So it's quite large actually. So that gives us a lot of opportunity to provide that 10% net gain that the officer's just been speaking about. So, as that's the case, I can comfortably say that we will hit a 10% net gain, but it's how, therefore, are you able to achieve those details? And I would recommend a condition in this case. Worst case scenario, if you didn't feel comfortable here today, I would ask for a deferral anyway to provide B&G assessment, but obviously that's up to you. Coming back to the parking, like I said, it's in line with local parking standards. It's making the road safe. It's currently not safe. Yeah, so I'll hand it over to you. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Just hand over. Okay, good evening, members of the Planning Committee and fellow residents. My name is Stephen Hayward, and I'm one of the applicants for the proposed development of 9 additional off-street parking spaces along Dyson Drive. The other applicants are behind me, and we've all been badly affected by the lack of dedicated parking on Dyson Drive. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today about a project that I believe will benefit not only my household, but also our community. Many of us, most of us, have young families, so having safe and ready access to our cars is a must. I listened to the refusal points from our last planning application, the main one being health and safety regarding the width of the road being impacted by parking along the length of the road, narrowing the road. Therefore, we have moved the bays to be alongside the existing bays that are perpendicular to the road, away from creating bays along the road. This improves the flow of traffic along the road. We have the full support of the developer behind this application, and they have given the go-ahead to obtain the permission so that the works can be carried out. This proposal also aligns with local planning policies that prioritise reducing on-street parking demands and encouraging sustainable land use. The design of the parking area has been carefully considered to ensure it blends seamlessly with the existing environment. Features such as using grasscrete, landscaping and the planting of new trees will minimise visual impacts and maintain the character of the area. I want to address the one concern the planning department had with the application and the reason for refusal head on. These spaces will not increase the amount of parking or volume of movement or numbers of cars. These cars are already being parked in the road with informal on-street parking, so it's a bit of a false statement to suggest this will create extra problems and car journeys. The provision of these spaces will create a much better environment for us, the residents, and I believe we will all be safer, including our children, due to the improved health and safety aspect of having allocated parking. Moreover, from the last time we had a meeting, Councillor Higgins made the suggestion to create the spaces in this way that we have in this application, and he on a personal level felt that this should be something that he would find acceptable. This viewpoint was largely agreed upon by the other councillors. In closing, I urge the committee to view this application as a proactive step towards a more balanced and functional local infrastructure. By approving these parking spaces, you will be supporting a solution that respects community needs and creates a safer environment for a group of happy council taxpayers. Thank you for your time and consideration. I now hand you over to my neighbour, Ved, who is going to say a few words regarding the application and the problems and issues that it resolves.
Can I just come back in, actually, because I forgot to mention that the proposal includes the planting of 3 trees as well. So obviously there is that biodiversity net gain. So there would have been already a condition probably in place to secure those trees. So as part of that condition, further details and landscaping details could be secured to address the B&G point. More than happy with that.
Thank you very much, the committee. I won't waste any time. I just want to mention that because of this issue, everyone have kids which is under 5, and we had to do so many police complaints because they are parking the big vans and the car anywhere they want. And when we go to the person and said we are going to do the police complaint, they said, yeah, you go and do the police complaint. Wherever we find the empty parking, either it's your bay or it's not, we are going to park on your bay. and because of that issues, we all have little kids. So many times it happened to me myself because my wife was pregnant and she couldn't go to the hospital because someone blocked the car, and I had to do the police complaint, and it's keep going on. It's literally happened 6 months ago as well. So we have all the videos, all the photographs and everything for the evidence. That's it from me. Thank you.
Go ahead, Richard, you got a couple of minutes, you all finished? Oh, you got less than a minute.
I'll just mention maybe that these are all family-sized dwellings as well. They're not small dwellings. And I am repeating myself, but 2 parking spaces. We saw applications earlier here tonight where parking was an issue, and this is exactly what we usually expect in Hillingdon. So I would like to think councillors might look favourably upon that aspect of it. I am concerned about the BNG, but I'm not concerned because I know we can deliver it. It's just how you want to package that up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does councillors have any questions for the petitioner or the agent? No, I will call you in a minute, councillor. Go on. Right.
Thank you, Chair. So you are aware it's against policy, London policy, in terms of to go against officers' recommendation. I mean, maybe I missed some of the points, but what's the main point? How you feel we can overcome that?
Yes, I think you need to recognise the existing situation, as the resident mentioned, which was there is currently highway safety issues. There's a number of aspects to that. One of them is actually refuse access to the road itself. It's quite difficult at the moment because you have informal on-street car parking. So you have refuse trucks that travel up Dyson Drive, then turn around and then back, but often they can't actually access the properties at the end of the street because it's too narrow, and obviously the cars where they're parked, it makes the distance between the houses and those parked cars very, very narrow for the refuse vehicles and for pedestrians as well. So that's one kind of current failure of the current arrangements. So by allowing this scheme, what you're doing is obviously taking those spaces away which are causing the current highway safety issues and moving them to a place that are safe for residents to use. There's also the kind of antisocial behaviour aspect as well, because they're informal. You do get, I appreciate that, but it is an ongoing concern for residents as well.
Thank you, Chair. Also, the current informal parking arrangements that you have here, say for example, we were minded to go against officers' recommendation. Now the current parking that you have, not on the bays, but in the street, we saw a photograph of that, the cars parked around. Now, if these bays were then installed, where would those cars go then? Or would you encourage more cars to come in? How would that be, not policed, but managed? And I'm thinking on the lines of getting double yellows installed, something on those lines, so that, what's your feeling on that?
I appreciate that, and I think on the previous application we were looking at adopting something similar to what you see on the other road next door, because there is actually measures in place on it. But because all the residents here at the moment rely on that informal car parking, just like you do when you're bringing in a CPZ, you need the resident support for it. And unfortunately, there's no support for measures at the moment because you need the car parking. So it's a bit of a, bit of an issue really that needs to be resolved.
Other questions? I'll ask one question. Are the spaces at the moment allocated to each house or not?
No. So you do get like visitors to the town centre and things like that parking there and just parking the car all day.
Okay, so it's another thing to be mindful of. Any other questions? No? Thank you. You may take your seat. Can I call the ward councillor? Councillor Chandel.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair and committee members. As ward councillor, I'm here to represent the residents of Dyson Drive in support of their petition. Since last year, the residents have positively engaged with St Modwyn's, the private developers, And it is clear that there was an oversight with the previous developers in not allocating sufficient parking spaces in line with the rest of St Andrews Park. St Modwins are aware of this application and are fully supportive of it. Since the initial development and planning granted in 2016, the reality is that most households have at least 2 cars. For families with young children and regular errands to manage, alternative and more sustainable transport options are not always practical. The residents are mindful of the environmental factors and the impact to green spaces, and therefore, as has been said, are proposing to fund the planting of 3 additional trees and a grass scree if possible at an estimated cost of £1,500 to themselves. We're not asking for a major change to the streetscape, just to bring Dyson Drive in line with Kellett Street, which is directly opposite and has 2 allocated spaces per house and is consistent with the rest of St Andrews Park. In short, this request for additional parking is not an expansion but a formalisation of the current situation. Cars are already parked alongside the road and across existing bays, which affects road safety and access. By creating the proper parking spaces, we can address this issue and improve road safety without increasing overall parking pressure. I urge the committee to give serious consideration to this request and what has been presented today. If a site visit would help clarify the situation, I encourage you to visit Dyson Drive and see the current parking challenges for yourselves, due to the lack of what should have been allocated initially in line with the rest of St Andrews Park. And I stress again, we are just looking to formalise the current parking situation into designated spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have a question for the councillor? No? Thank you very much. You may take your seat. Okay, so I'll open to the floor. Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a strange one, because when those houses were built, I believe it's 1 parking space allocated and it would have all been thought of. Now, moving along a few years now, the case being made from both the ward councillor and the residents, I think it's a sensible request. Because, sorry, could we go back to the parking spaces that were the proposed ones? So you still see a fair amount of greenery there, as the agent, I believe, said, and they're planting 3 new trees. Now, if that was proposed for the whole length of it, I think that would be unreasonable. Looking at going from 15 to 24, it is a big jump. But in terms of fit, I'm mindful, actually, to go against officers' recommendations, because I believe it's not. He's not talking about 2 hectares being changed over. You're talking about 9 parking spaces, and it does actually fit in well. And looking at the photographs as well. But I'll listen to other councillors, see the members of the committee what they think. That's my view.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows.
Thanks, Chair. It is a difficult one, especially when you look at other parts of this site. I saw this develop and grow over the years. I don't think this is an unreasonable request by the applicants, to be honest, and the residents. And I'm a bit mindful of what Councillor Chandel has said, and to move along with him as well. But, a bit like Dragon's Den, it should come with a couple of caveats in there. I think one is about the yellow lines to prevent some of the parking, to make it safer when they've got new bays. But also, it can only go forward subject to the other information that's being requested by planning. I think that will then pull all that together. So I'm actually mindful to go along with Councillor Chandel and actually possibly vote against the refusal put forward by officers. But I'm, as like Councillor Chandel, open to hearing others.
Councillor Mand.
Thank you, Chairman. I think fellow committee members have made some sensible points here. I think the application is also with all the residents. My only concern would be that if the if this is allocated, then the current parking arrangement, where the applicants have said there's a lot of informal parking happening already, that's sort of counterproductive, I feel, to their argument, because if we shift those cars into proper bays, what's going to happen is more cars may park on where the current informal parking is happening. So I am more or less leaning into the favour of there needs to be some sort of restrictions in place if we are to go against officers' recommendations. I think we can't just create 9 spaces and then leave everything as it is. Second question was in regards to the trees. Is 3 the maximum that we can put in, or is there provision to put in some more there?
Chris, do you want to?
To confirm, that's what's been proposed, so it would really be down to, I mean, we could add a condition on if we got to a point where we were minded to approve here, and I think we'll have that discussion in more detail in a moment, but we could add a condition on which the applicant would need to agree to for additional planting. But I just want to be clear that the reason for refusal here is not related to landscaping. It's purely related to the over-provision of parking. There isn't a concern here regarding the landscaping, although we do have concerns. It doesn't form part of the reason for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Fine. Councillor Sansbury?
I just want a clarification from the officer. The agent said that this proposal is acceptable under local plan, but not under London plan. So which got the more weightage?
Thank you. That is a good question. It's probably one of the most important. So the London plan was adopted in 2021. Our local plan was adopted in 2020. I think anybody that sat in this room that has dealt with planning applications which have got parking spaces related to it, particularly the more major developments since that period, will be aware in a significant movement towards giving greater weight to the London plan, purely on the basis that before, when we were applying more weight to our own policies and our own standards, we have received appeal decisions which have given greater weight to the London plan standards. So as much as they're considered, what we've based this application on is the most up-to-date policy, and members do need to be aware of that when they're making their decision. That the London plan is what we've based our decision on, and that really should be what we focus on in the determination of this application. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, fine. Before I come back to you, Councillor Chandel, Natalie, you wanted to make a few comments?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to reiterate that any departure this evening from policy would obviously have to outweigh what it's there to do, essentially, because it has to be justified that there is a real reason to justify, to depart from policy in allowing these 9 extra car parking spaces.
Okay, and I think, Ros, you wanted to come in as well?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a few things that I wanted to clarify. So, firstly, we've heard reference to potentially an oversight in a lack of provision of parking on the street. I do disagree with that. What Chris has explained in the presentation is that there's actually an over-provision if we sort of use the current policy, which is the London plan. So there isn't an oversight. What was approved was it considered acceptable in planning terms at the time. Now, there is a climate emergency. There is a clear direction in both government national planning guidance and also in regional planning guidance that we should be looking to encourage sustainable modes of travel. And the key factor in terms of achieving that is to minimise parking availability to effectively discourage car ownership. And so I just wanted to make that clear. There wasn't an oversight. I don't agree with that. What is provided is acceptable in planning terms, and what is being proposed here would actually represent quite a stark departure from planning policy. So secondly, the agent talked about the previous application that was refused, and there was reference to it being refused in relation to a highway safety matter. Now that is correct, but the reason for refusal was actually twofold. So yes, it referenced the highway safety concerns, but it also referenced a failure to encourage sustainable modes of transport. Now, members, we need to be mindful of consistency in decision making. So previously we refused the application, albeit a different form, a different layout, due to concerns both about highway safety impact but also in terms of the failure to encourage sustainable travel. So if you were looking to overturn officers' recommendation today, you would need to be satisfied that either that sustainable transport issue has been addressed or that there are significant material considerations that outweigh that policy conflict. So I think hopefully that's helpful and gives some further clarity.
Chris?
Yeah, I just want to, I suppose, add a couple of points. One of the points which I made in the presentation was just around the fact that if you potentially increase the number of spaces that you've got, does it actually address your problem, or does it actually encourage further misuse of the car parking spaces? In the presentation from the petitioner and the agent, there were two elements that were brought up. One was that there isn't sufficient parking to serve the existing dwellings, which there's a case to be made by the applicant on that. But there's also an issue to do with the misuse of the spaces themselves. Now, this application does not seek to control those existing spaces. So the point that's made in the committee report and in the presentation is that does increasing the number of parking spaces address the problem? In fact, we don't think it does, because there's still no control over the existing spaces. The control of those existing spaces could happen now without the policy departure by increasing the number of spaces. So I just wanted to make that point quite clear. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chandel and then Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers, for that input, because I mean, in the decade that I've been sitting on the planning committee, I can almost count on one hand if I've ever gone against officers' recommendations, because our officers do give comprehensive reports. But we have to look at each application on its own merits. Now, here we've got a PTOL value of 2, I believe. Now, if you've got a 2 and we're encouraging people not to have cars, I don't think so that goes hand in hand. We're looking at an area where I believe there is sufficient space there. We're deviating from policy for a reason. In terms of control, something what Councillor Mann said, a valid point. I think then conditions of whether these parking spaces are allocated to households, I believe that would certainly manage it better. The double yellow lines which I've suggested, I believe that also will assist in managing the situation better. And like I said, I don't take it lightly to go against officers' recommendation. Never have done and never will do. But on this occasion, I believe both the councillor and the resident have made valid points. And offsetting more trees, maybe, yes, why not? You know, let's put half a dozen trees in, if that will assist. But I'm still mindful of actually going against officers' recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chris, and all officers and councillors. We have a healthy discussion. It's a little bit confusing. Can we, if everybody agree, can we do a site visit, then we can get more clear picture? So, you know, I know a couple of residents there, they have already parking issues, they are complaining, but it's difficult. So, if everybody agree, I suggest do the site visit, then we can understand, or we can see the clear picture. Thank you.
Okay, so that's been put on the floor. Can I have a seconder to that, please? For a site visit. No. Councillor Mann?
Just wanted a bit more information. Just based on what Councillor Chandel has said and Burrows has said in regards to possible restrictions. Are we able to condition that in a refusal, or does that then need to be deferred so that we get the I just need a bit of education on that in terms of yellow lines and also the allocation of parking. Because, Chris, you did mention there's something along the lines of that. I wouldn't want to go against officer's recommendation without having all of that ironed out, in effect.
As you always do, Councillor Mann, that's a very reasonable question. So, can officers pick that one up?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think if we were dealing with a piece of public highway, we would be saying that parking control process would take place outside of the planning process, so it's governed by a different process separate to planning. It's with the local highway authority. Because we're dealing with effectively a piece of private land, it's not within our control to enforce it, so therefore a condition wouldn't meet the tests. Yeah, thank you.
So in theory we would, we would go for a site visit to defer it for the applicant to make those changes, or are we saying that we can't get involved with that at all?
Thank you, Chairman. I think if the parking controls are shown on the plans, I think members just need to be quite clear that the local authority would not be able to enforce those parking controls. It would be down to the management company or the freeholder, whoever it is, the residents as a group, to enforce those parking controls. They wouldn't be able to call your standard parking enforcement team to come out and enforce those. Yeah. Thank you.
So that makes it interesting. Going to have any more comments from councillors? Councillor Dr. Tilley, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Chairman. As Chris mentioned, this would be a departure from policy, and that is policy T 6.1, residential parking in the London plan, which would allow, as a new build, 1 car parking space per dwelling, maximum. That's maximum, whereas this application would increase the number of car parking spaces per dwelling to 2. Now, car parking standards are the most effective tool transportation planners, highway engineers have at tackling the big issues of the environment, climate change, public health, air quality, the economy, traffic congestion, and that's the reason why we now have maximum car parking standards that are much lower than previously at the time of the local plan. So for this reason, the Highway Authority objects to this planning application. Increasing the number of car parking spaces here would set a precedent where the number of car parking spaces across the whole of St Andrews Park could be increased. St Andrews Park then becomes a car park for the town centre for commuters, and we've already heard from one of the gentlemen that spoke that already cars are blocking other vehicles in, sometimes needing the police to be called. And also the site is very close to Uxbridge Town Centre, where there's all the range of services, facilities, there's a school on the site, and just at the end of the road there's a footpath onto Uxbridge Road where there are bus services. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. The puzzle for me about this is, I like to think I have some sort of common sense about stuff. Why is on the other side of the road, or the other avenue of houses, is there 21 spaces, and on this side there was only, I can't remember, 16 was it something? 15.
I'd say it's attributed to the unit mix and the number of units that are along that street. As much as we won't have the direct answer there right here and now, we would only be allocating additional parking, or within the planning application they would only have benefited from a higher level of parking if the unit mix were to be different or that side is more densely developed.
Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. This is to Dr. Tilley. So if we have a standard, how does the P-tail value then, what kind of weighting do we put to the P-tail value to there? Because to me it doesn't make sense. If you've got 10 houses and you've got a P-tail value of 0, then what you're saying, you can only have 1 car. And if you've got a P-tail value of 5, and then we're still allowing 1 car. So how does that ironed out.
Okay.
Yep, thank you very much, Chairman. In the London plan, which I have a copy in front of me, there's a table, and the number of car parking spaces allowed varies according to PTAL. So in a location where you've got a PTAL ranking of 6, the very best access to public transport, the number of car parking spaces would be far lower, even 0, compared to a place that's got a PTAL ranking of 0 or 1, where there's no access to public transport. In those locations, the number of car parking spaces allowed by policy is greater. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, Councillor Mand.
Sorry, I keep coming in. Just looking at that photo, there's double yellow lines there. Just wanted to ask, how are they policed and managed at the moment?
This is the nut of the sort of like the nut of it.
Yeah, I'll take an educated guess, but I think you're looking at the bell mouth for the front part of the road, which may well be adopted, as opposed to the rest of the informal area and car parking area. Yeah, so as Ed was the lead officer on that site, he will know very well the road that leads through the centre of the development is adopted.
So we have the centre of the road is adopted.
Yep.
The road that runs centrally. Centrally, yep. That's fine. So that goes right the way through. So we do have obviously parking attendants going down that bit.
Yeah, the part that we can control.
But they're not really officially allowed to. I just want to get some clarity.
Mm-hmm.
They're not officially allowed to then divert over that yellow line there. It's like a no-go area. So if they were to issue a ticket on a yellow line there, then whoever was that ticket was issued to would then go against, could have it dismissed.
Yeah,
correct.
Correct. Yeah.
So I can't take up questions on the floor. So this is a very difficult one. Yeah, Dr. Tilly.
Yeah. The double yellow lines. I live on a road that's not adopted, and we've got double yellow lines, but they're not enforced. How they would be enforced is if a private company and enforce the parking on behalf of the residents, and there would be a sign. You've probably seen these signs. If you park here, there's a message that you would get a fine, and I think the figure of the fine's mentioned. So by parking on the double yellow lines, you're going into a contract and you accept that you will pay that fine, and that's how it works in private roads. But I would suggest in this case that there's not a private company enforcing the double yellow lines, just as I know there aren't at the moment on my road where I live. Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
So, there's the conundrum for you guys there. So, what are you going to do? Councillor Chandel.
I think we would be sensible to go for defer it, not necessarily a site visit, and also it gives an opportunity then for the residents, councillor and the agent to come up with some additional support for this application, because I think I sense the feeling that we have in the room, and there's slight little few anomalies that we need to sort of tick. Like I said, we don't like going against officers' recommendations, but I feel which way it's going, but I just think we need to tick those boxes, and the only way to get there, I think, as much as I don't, great fan of site visits, but...
That's fine. So we have a proposal on the floor for a site visit from Councillor Singh. So you're seconding his thing.
I'll second it.
Also, let's make it quite clear that we would like that BAG or BG? Whatever it is, the BGG, whatever. The BGs are very good. I like them. To come back to us on the next thing. And if you wish to have, remember this, if you wish to have speaking rights, you have to have another petition. Okay? So that means you have to go around knocking on doors, getting signatures again. Okay? So I've had a proposal and a second on the floor for a site visit. Can I show of hands those in favour of site visit? Right, and hopefully some of you will turn up. That'll be really good. Thank you very much for that. So we deferred it till we have a site visit, and you've got some food for thought there, Richard. So we'll let you see what you can come up with. Okay. If you can ask Councillor Bennett to come in if possible, thank you. Right, so I've just had some refreshment to keep me going again. So off we go to the next one, which is number 8, 41 Parkfield Road, and this is Owen. A nice new voice there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Item 9 relates to 41A Parkfield Road. The application seeks planning permission for the demolition of existing bungalow and the erection of a 2-storey replacement dwelling with associated parking and landscaping. The item is presented at committee as a petition received with 20 signatures. So here's the site location plan, situated on the southwestern side of Parkfield Road and comprises existing bungalow with loft conversion. So there you have the constraints. It's not within a conservation area. The property abuts another residential development to the back, Rectory Way. And here you have the bird's eye view of the site. As you can see, they're quite long gardens, well landscaped at the back. And here you have the existing floor plans. So you have your, it's currently a 3-bed dwelling with, I suppose, 1 bedroom in the loft, office to the front, living space at the back on ground floor. And there's your existing elevation. In terms of, I suppose, architecturally, it wouldn't be, it's modest architecture design, nothing special. Proposed block plan. I suppose key on this plan, you see the nearest primary window meeting the 45-degree test. Just also to make you aware, we have received a daylight sunlight report as well, and each neighbouring window passes the daylight sunlight test. Okay, so here you have your proposed floor plans. On the left-hand side is the ground floor plan. Centrally is your first floor, and then you have additional living accommodation in the loft. It would go from a 3-bed to a 4-bed unit. And here is the proposed elevation. I suppose the key point I'd make is the actual single-storey element along the left-hand side. So that garage, it kind of is on the side of the adjacent bungalow. Along the other side is another 2-storey dwelling. So here's your street scene. Again, you see it there, number 43. It's a similar scale to the application property. They've also got an extension to the side, so argumentally 43 is greater bulk than the application site. And here is some photos of the application site. So again, the bungalow, is loft in dormer to the front and back. No great significant architectural style to it. And here you have it in terms of the actual adjacent property. So on the right-hand side is your 2-storey dwelling. You have the application property in the centre, and then on the left, I suppose is probably clearer on the previous plan, is the bungalow at 41. And this is the rear elevation, again, property in the centre, and the bungalow at 41 extends further, their footprint extends further into the garden than the application property. And just to give you an idea of the types of permissions on the street so far, so 43 has received planning permission for a 2-storey extension, and there was an appeal allowed at number 29 Parkfield Road. I suppose one of the key findings in that appeal was the inspector did not dismiss that there was a variance in the architectural styles and types of dwellings along the street. Again, another appeal at 54 and 54A Parkfield Road for replacement dwellings, which was allowed at appeal in 2016. And this one was granted a replacement dwelling in 2021. And again, another one in 2008, which was allowed at appeal. You may recall, members, there was a similar replacement dwelling that went to October committee last year. I suppose the actual plans are there on the front elevation, rear elevation on the top picture, and then the street view shows the approved plan at 39. 41A is slightly to the right, as identified. That's it in its current form. Obviously, if approved, it would be a similar roof line to 43. In terms of principle, the replacement dwelling is considered acceptable. It would provide a form of family accommodation. The design is also considered acceptable in context of the street scene and the prevailing character, which is a mixture of bungalows and 2-storey dwellings. The mix has previously been commented by the inspectorate during the appeal process. As identified in the presentation, the roof lines would match the existing height of number 43, and generally the design is in keeping with the street. In terms of amenity, we have reduced the depth of the footprint during the course of the application to align with the previously allowed scheme at number 39 Parkfield. The plans also demonstrate the nearest primary habitable windows at 43 would pass the 45-degree test. A daylight sunlight assessment was undertaken, which confirmed that each window would pass the actual criteria of that test. To the rear, the properties are sufficient distance to the properties along Rectory Way, with over 30 metres distance away from them. Overall, officers are satisfied there would be no adverse impact on neighbours' amenity. In terms of parking, the proposal would continue to provide sufficient parking to the dwelling, and highways have raised no objections. Overall standards of accommodation would meet London Plan requirements. Overall, officers are satisfied that the development would not cause harm to the local character, neighbours' amenity, provides a suitable standards of accommodation, and is therefore recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Owen. That was very thorough. Mr. Richard Kirk, E or Kirk? No. Applicant or agent, Mr. Gadda? We're both here. Would you like to speak, or you have 5 minutes if you wish to speak to the committee? You don't have to, but if you want to. The 5 minutes will start when you press the button.
Thank you, councillors and committee. I hadn't planned on speaking, but I know some of the objections by the petitioner was to do with could possibly be a HMO, or it would impact on the street. I mean, I can assure you, we're here with my family. It's a family house. We've lived on the street for over 5 years. We've been respectful with all the neighbours. We're going to continue to live there, and we're actually, one of the main purposes is to also enable my elderly father to also live with us. Hence, the plan will be that he'll be on the ground floor with his own quarters. So, I think the main thing is that I know some of the objections were, what are we going to do with that? We're going to move out. Is it going to go to a developer? Will it be Airbnb, etc.? I can assure you that it's just a family home. It's been a family home. It will continue to be a family home just for our own personal use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? You may take your seat. Thank you very much. You did very well, by the way, just off the cuff. Councillor Bennett, do you want to take me away?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't think we need to spend too long on this one. I recall, as Councillor Chamdell and I just liaised on, there's been quite a few applications from Parkfield Road. We did a site visit on one, which was very useful actually for both that application and subsequent ones, where what was once a very sort of quiet cul-de-sac full of bungalows has now got a very, very mixed street scene. And you will see, and there were some in the presentation, numerous examples of where bungalows, all of which look very different, I've just gone on Google Street View here, have been demolished and have been rebuilt as larger family homes. I think the first couple started off at appeal, and then that kind of sets a precedent that's very difficult to go against. So as much as, I'm sure we do empathise with the petitioner's concerns, ultimately this is kind of becoming the norm on this road. And I think there is also, to the applicant's point there's also a fear now when somebody wants to build a 5-bedroom house that it automatically is going to become a HMO, whereas actually many 5-bedroom houses are, as in this case, for families, for people to live together. So I'm happy to propose that we approve the application.
It's okay. I propose to Councillor Chamdell, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a very strange road. I mean, it's a shame you didn't have photographs from the other side of the road. I mean, the houses are even bigger. Oh, wow. In terms of, I think the applicants worked well with the officers. They've obviously listened to them and obviously downsized, should we say, a little bit. And I think it fits in with what there isn't a street scene there. I mean, as Councillor Bennett said. Also, I was interested to see the gap between the two houses, because some of the houses that we saw last time on the visit, I mean, it was not, couldn't see it, a couple of inches. So I'm glad to see that's been adhered to. So I'm happy to second Councillor Bennett.
Okay. So I'm proposed and seconded. Councillor Singh, did you want to add something? No, it's fine. So can I have a show of hands those in favour of this officer's recommendation? So that's approved. Thank you very much. There you go. Wish you all the best. Okay, so we come away from petitions and we go to an applications without petition, which is the Unit 4 Silverdale Industrial State Hayes Town, and that is Michael. You want to, whenever you're ready?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So before I start, please be advised that there is an addendum for this item which includes some minor updates to condition wording. So item 10 relates to Unit 4 Silverdale Industrial Estate, which comprises a vacant warehouse on Silverdale Road in Hayes. The site is brownfield land and measures just under half a hectare. So the site forms part of a designated strategic industrial location, and the surrounding area is predominantly characterised by industrial uses and warehouses, including cash and carry businesses to the east and west. There's a railway line runs to the south, and the Hillingdon Borough Central Mosque also is located to the west of the application site. The site also forms part of the declared Hillingdon Air Quality Management Area and the Hayes Air Quality Focus Area. So yeah, the site can be seen from a bird's eye view as shown by the red line there. This is also a CGI image of the site as sourced from Google. Gives a bit of an impression as to how the site was previously used. And some photos of the site. This is the vacant warehouse as it exists today. This is the service yard that sits at the front of the site. The Hillingdon Borough Central Mosque, which neighbours the site. This is a more contextual image of the site as seen from Silverdale Road. You can see the access road to the front in the foreground there, and the vacant warehouse in the background. Another one from Silverdale Road, a slightly different angle. Probably just worth noting that the tree planting in the foreground, the vacant warehouse, and then the construction works in the background, providing a bit of an impression of character of the area. So this application seeks permission to demolish the existing vacant warehouse and to construct a data centre with circa 1,900 square metres floor space. It would include plant and an emergency backup generator. Ancillary buildings are proposed, including a sprinkler tank, pump house, security guard house, a substation, medium voltage building, bin store and bike store, landscaping, boundary treatment, and ancillary works are also proposed. So the proposed data centre would sit on the southern portion of the site, with the service yard to the front. The emergency generator would sit down the eastern side of the site, and the ancillary buildings, as shown on plan there, would sit in the service yard area, and the site would be secured by weld mesh fencing. This is the proposed landscaping plan, and it confirms the proposal to plant trees down the western portion of the site there, supported by meadow planting to the rear, as well as living green walls on some of the ancillary buildings. Just a light. I can point out there's green wall here, here, and here. Can do that on this side as well. To the front, Silverdale Road, down the side. Oh, sorry, Chris. And down that side there. Right. So this is the proposed ground floor plan of the data centre, the majority of which is taken up by a data hall, which would contain all the relevant computers and servers to support the function of the development. Ancillary office space and plant space is what makes up the rest of the floor plate. That's the first floor plan of the data centre, very much the same at both ground and first floor levels. That's the proposed roof plan, which comprises again plants to support the use, as well as PV panels, which supports the energy strategy. So these are the proposed elevations. The data centre would measure approximately 14.7 metres at its highest point. The primary elevation is shown at the top left there, the northern elevation, which is where the entrance to the building would be located. The generator and plant would be screened by the proposed design, which comprises a more boxy kind of high-tech design with striped cladding. Here are some plans for the ancillary buildings. Got the sprinkler tank and pump house, which are required for fire safety. These are located to the front of the site, and as kind of previously referenced, there is a living green wall that is proposed to screen those buildings. A kiosk, substation and mid-voltage building are proposed to connect the data centre to the power grid. A security guard house is also proposed, alongside a bin store and bike shelter, which would also be screened by living walls. This is an existing street scene image at the top, and kind of overlaid on the bottom there is how the site would look. Again, with the data centre peeking out the back there, and the green wall screening to the front. And here are some CGIs showing how the site would look. here from the front, again from the front but from a different angle, and from the rear view there. So the proposed demolition of the vacant warehouse and development of a data centre is considered to be acceptable in principle. Data centres are an appropriate use in a strategic industrial location and are considered to be or have significant economic benefits. Through consultation with the Greater London Authority Infrastructure Coordination Service, the Council have confirmation that infrastructure providers are deploying solutions to resolve power capacity issues for residential and mixed-use development. The data centre proposal here is understood to be a smaller demand project, is their terminology, and as the applicant has secured a connection to the power grid from SSEN, it is confirmed that the proposal would not overburden the local grid capacity. In essence, this proposal won't have an impact on delivery of housing in the borough or local area. So the development is considered to improve the appearance of the site and would reduce trips generated by the site, alongside encouraging more sustainable forms of transport for a travel plan and contributions towards healthy street measures. Carbon and air quality emissions are identified as potential harms, but these impacts would be mitigated by the conditions and Section 106 obligations proposed. It is highlighted that no objections were received from neighbours on this application, and for the reasons set out within the report, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and a Section 106 legal agreement. I'll pass back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Before I open to the floor, in the report it says about renewable energies, but I can't see where is it solar panels on there, or are they on the side rather than on the roof? Is that where they are?
No, that's right. There are solar panels proposed on the roof plan there. This is the CGI. Solar panels can be located here.
Fine. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Okay, so I've got Councillor Singh and then Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Officer. I think you delivered everything: health and safety, trees, security, everything I think covered. I think it's better opportunity to get that database over there, so I recommended Officer's recommendation.
Much that's proposed. Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think occupying an empty building is always a good idea. The applicant has dealt with concerns by the Urban Design Officer, Network Rail. We've got conditions to mitigate other things. I think it's a good application, and I would more than happy to second it.
Proposed and second. Do you want to add something, Councillor Bennett?
Yes, if you don't, just the proximity to the mosque in terms of hours of worship, in terms of the construction. So I think it's got its own highway entrance, looking at the photos, so access isn't necessarily an issue, which I originally thought it might be in terms of people getting to the mosque. In terms of hours of construction, given it's next to a place of worship, would we normally look to restrict that, to not disrupt?
I would have said during, obviously, if it was Ramadan or something like that. But Michael, do you have any comments on that?
We have got a condition which secures the detail of construction management plan. I don't believe that, as drafted at present, it makes specific reference to that point. It is something that we can add in there and take away for further consideration.
If we just take it in and just make sure the dates and everything don't clash, then I don't think it's going to be an issue there. Thank you. Very good point, Councillor Bennett. Okay, so I'm proposed and seconded. Show of hands, those in favour of this application. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So that's passed. Thank you. Last one of the evening, number 11, 2729 Wiltshire Lane, Eastcote. Owen?
Thank you, Chair. The application seeks planning permission for the conversion of existing locally listed building into two houses, including a single-storey rear extension, drop curb, and demolition of garages to the rear to increase garden space for one of the dwellings. The item is presented to committee as it's a council-owned property. Just to make you aware, there's been no objections received during the application. I would point out to members the addendum associated with the report, which refers to a slight amendment to the drawing numbers. It's related to a window, an existing window that is not being removed or changed. So here you have the site location plan, situated on the southwestern side of Wilshire Lane. It comprises a detached locally listed building, historically building previously used as 4 undersized studio flats. To the north, opposite the site, is the Hayden School Mixed Secondary School. So there you have the constraints of the site, and that's the bird's eye view of the property itself. It's quite a large property, and you see the grounds opposite associated with the school. So there's the front elevation, and here is the existing site plan. On ground floor you have 2 flats, flat 1 and flat 2, and here you show the first floor as well, flat 3 and 4, and the roof plan on the bottom. And here is your existing elevations. So you have the northeast elevation is your front elevation, and the southwest elevation would be the rear of the site with the 2 flank elevations. So as part of the scheme, it would convert the property from 4 studios, which historically have been in existence, but there doesn't appear to be a planning record on them, and they're undersized. So generally, in terms of you're getting 2 houses which would be meet the floor space standards. As part of the scheme also, the house 1, the garden, would be reinstated. Presently there's garages at the rear of the garden which will be reinstated to a garden, which is a benefit also to the scheme. So here's the proposed floor plans. House 1 on the left, with the ground floor projecting out onto the garden. It's probably hard to see here, but that's the extension here. It's 3.3 meters deep. So in terms of size-wise, it's very modest and respects the actual character of the building. Our design officer has raised no objection to the size and the materials used for it. So as you can see, the extension is here, and there it is here. So that's the flank return. So it's set back from the main flank wall. That's your, on the bottom left is your proposed front elevation. So the main changes, external changes, would be the single-story extension. And some photos here. So that's the flank elevation. There's your current rear elevation, which will be, you'll have the garden enlarged, and we have conditions on landscaping secured. And that's another flank elevation. And I suppose there are the garages that will be removed. Just here. And garden reinstated. Okay. In terms of principle, the proposal would provide 2 quality 4-bedroom units, which would be supported by policy. As pointed out, the existing studios are in poor quality condition and undersized. The provision of better quality dwelling would therefore be supported. The design, from a design perspective, the single-story extension would be sympathetic to the locally listed building and the street scene. The expansion of the garden and landscaping is very much welcomed and would benefit the stature of the locally listed building by improving space that surrounds it. There are no additional window openings that would cause any adverse impact on neighbours' amenity. The extension is well away from residents along Salisbury Road. As can be seen, the overall quality of accommodation is generous and is an improvement for future occupants. Highways have raised no objection. Overall, the scheme is considered acceptable and recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. Very cool. Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a sensible use of land now, much needed 4-bedroom housing, which we don't seem to have much of. I'm happy with what the officers have presented and happy to go with the officers' recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
I'm quite happy to second
Thank
the
you.
recommendation.
So I'm proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands those in favour of the officer's recommendation? That is approved unanimously. Thank you very much and good night. Have a safe journey home and see you next time. Right?